When most people think of haunted houses, they picture a short burst of ghostly activity, a few nights of banging doors or flickering lights. However, for the Smurl family of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, their haunting endured for 13 long years and became one of the most talked about paranormal cases of the 1980s. This wasn't just creaky floors and cold drafts. The Smurl haunting was violent, persistent, and terrifying enough to attract national media attention, and even the famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. In 1973, Jack and Janet Smurl moved into a duplex home with their children, hoping for a fresh start. At first, life was normal. But by 1974, strange things began happening. Foul smells filled the house without explanation. Appliances malfunctioned or turned on by themselves. Scratching noises came from inside the walls. The activity escalated slowly, giving the family hope that it might stop on its own. But it didn't. As the years went on, the haunting became much more aggressive. Dark shadows. The family claimed to see shadowy figures moving through the house. Physical attacks. Jack reported being scratched, pushed, and assaulted by an unseen force. Possessions. The family's German Shepherd was thrown against a wall. Janet claimed she was levitated off her bed. Blasphemous messages. Religious objects were desecrated, and vulgar words appeared on mirrors. The haunting seemed to thrive on fear, and the Smurls were running out of hope. Desperate for help, the Smurls contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren, the husband and wife paranormal team who later inspired the Conjuring movies. The Warrens investigated the home multiple times and declared that a powerful demonic entity was tormenting the Smurls. They claimed the demon had been feeding on negative energy for years and wouldn't leave without a fight. The case attracted media attention, drawing reporters, skeptics, and curious onlookers to the Smurls' quiet neighborhood, which only seemed to make the haunting worse. Several priests attempted to exorcise the home, with varying results. The activity would be quiet for a while, only to come roaring back. In 1989, after more than a decade of torment, the Smurl family finally moved out. According to them, the activity followed them briefly to their new home, before eventually stopping for good. Not everyone believed the Smurls' story. Some neighbors claimed they never witnessed anything unusual, and skeptics suggested that stress, hallucinations, or even hoaxes could explain the events. But the Smurls never wavered. They co-wrote a book, The Haunted, with journalist Robert Curran, which was adapted into a made-for-TV movie in 1991. Whether you believe it was a demon, a poltergeist, or a psychological phenomenon, the Smurl haunting is unforgettable because it involves an ordinary family. They didn't want fame. They didn't move into a creepy mansion expecting ghosts. They just wanted a safe home for their kids, and instead found themselves living inside a nightmare. The Smurl haunting is one of the most infamous cases of the 1980s because it combined the supernatural with very real human fear. Whether fact or fiction, it's a story that asks a chilling question. What if the thing tormenting you can't be seen and can't be stopped? The case continues to fascinate paranormal researchers and horror fans, proving that sometimes the scariest hauntings aren't the ones in movies. They're the ones that happen to real people. The 1980s gave us big hair, blockbuster movies, and arcade games, but it also gave us some of the creepiest urban legends that still make our skin crawl today. Whether whispered at slumber parties or shared on the playground, These stories spread like wildfire, taking on a life of their own. Some were harmless fun, but others were inspired by real crimes, making them all the more chilling. One of the most enduring urban legends of the 1980s tells the story of a woman driving home late at night when a truck driver starts following her. He flashes his lights and honks, terrifying her, until she realizes he was trying to warn her about the real threat, a man hiding in her back seat with a knife. This story played on a universal fear, being alone at night and not knowing who might be watching you. It reminded everyone to check the back seat before getting into their car, and many still do to this day. Before caller ID, prank calls were common and creepy. This legend tells of a babysitter receiving a series of disturbing calls, only to be told by the police the call is coming from inside the house. This legend inspired horror films like When a Stranger Calls and cemented itself as a campfire classic. The idea that the danger could already be inside your home made it unforgettable. Teenagers in the 80s whispered about a hook-handed killer who escaped from a mental institution and stalked parked couples on lovers' lanes. According to the story, the couple hears scratching on the car, speeds away in fear, and later finds a bloody hook hanging from the door handle. It was a cautionary tale for teenagers, warning them about the dangers of staying out too late, but it also played on the fear of the unknown lurking just outside the car. Another favorite of the decade was the hitchhiker who disappeared from the back seat of the car without a trace. Drivers would later find out the hitchhiker had died years earlier. Versions of this legend date back decades, but the 1980s gave it new life thanks to TV shows and books about ghosts and paranormal encounters. In the early 1980s, rumors about poisoned Halloween candy and razor blades in apples circulated widely, causing panic among parents. At the same time, killer clown sightings were reported in several cities, often with no evidence. But that didn't stop the fear from spreading. The candy panic led to hospitals offering free X-rays of Halloween treats. The clown scare made clowns a lasting source of fear, a trend that continues in horror movies today. Urban legends are a mirror of the fears of their time, and the 1980s were a decade full of fear. Stranger danger, unsolved crimes, and a growing obsession with true crime all helped these stories spread from kid to kid and town to town. Even if you didn't grow up in the 80s, chances are you've heard these tales. And maybe, just maybe, you still check the back seat before driving home at night. For many of us who grew up in the 1980s, breakfast came with a chilling reminder that the world wasn't always safe. Sitting at the kitchen table, we would see a smiling face printed on the side of a milk carton. A boy or girl who had vanished without a trace. This simple image turned morning routines into something darker. It was no longer just cereal and cartoons. It was a nationwide call for help. The movement began with the heartbreaking case of Ethan Patz, a 6-year-old boy from New York City who disappeared in 1979 on his way to the school bus. His case shocked the nation and inspired the idea of using everyday products to spread awareness. In 1984, Anderson Erickson Dairy in Des Moines, Iowa, became the first dairy to place photos of missing children on milk cartons. Soon, dairies across the country followed, and the campaign exploded. For parents, the milk carton campaign was a lifeline, a way to keep hope alive that someone somewhere might recognize their child and bring them home. But for children, it was terrifying. Breakfast became a reminder that kids like them could disappear. Stranger danger talks became common, warning kids to stay away from anyone they didn't know. the world suddenly felt less safe. It was one of the first moments in modern American life when childhood innocence was interrupted by a real, nationwide fear. In the fall of 1982, fear gripped the nation in a way it never had before. This was not the work of a serial killer lurking in dark alleys or a cult performing secret rituals. It was something far more sinister because it struck in the one place we all thought was safe, our medicine cabinet. On September 29, 1982, a 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman woke up with a sore throat. Like millions of Americans, her parents reached for extra-strength Tylenol, a trusted over-the-counter remedy. Hours later, Mary was dead. That same day, in different parts of the Chicago area, Adam Janus and, later, his brother and sister-in-law died after taking Tylenol from the same bottle. In total, 7 people died in just a few days, all linked to poisoned Tylenol capsules. Investigators determined that the bottles had been tampered with after leaving the factory. Someone had taken the capsules off store shelves, laced them with potent potassium cyanide, and returned them for unsuspecting customers to purchase. This revelation turned a household pain reliever into a weapon and terrified the public. Stores across the country pulled Tylenol from shelves. People poured their medicine bottles down the drain. The fear was contagious. The manufacturer, Johnson & Johnson, faced a public relations nightmare. But instead of minimizing the problem, they made what is now considered a gold standard response to a corporate crisis. Immediate recall. Over 31 million bottles were pulled from shelves nationwide, costing the company over $100 million. Public warning. They used the media to tell people not to use any Tylenol products. Safety innovation. They pioneered tamper-proof packaging, the triple seal bottle, which became a standard in the industry. This response not only saved their brand, but also set a new precedent for how companies should handle public safety threats. The investigation. Despite one of the largest manhunts in American history, the killer was never caught. A man named James William Lewis was convicted of sending an extortion letter to Johnson & Johnson, demanding money to stop the murders. Still, he was never proven to be the poisoner. To this day, the Tylenol murders remain unsolved, a chilling reminder that some crimes leave behind more questions than answers. The Tylenol murders were not just a tragedy, they were a turning point. They forced both companies and consumers to rethink safety in a world where even something as simple as a pain reliever could be used as a weapon. Perhaps the scariest part is that the person who did it was never caught. The case still haunts investigators and true crime enthusiasts to this day.